Okay, good morning, everybody. Actually, good afternoon, depending on where you are. This is the More Listings Mastermind. I'm your host, Robert Weichelt. We meet every Wednesday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. You can go to morenowlistings.com to plug right in anytime you're ready to go. I always like to start off with a quote. I'm just kind of one of those guys. I'm a successories junkie, if you will. I've got Vince Lombardi, Ronald Reagan. I've got Abraham Lincoln successory quotes all over my office. And this is one of my favorite quotes. The only place success comes before work is in the dictionary. So we're about getting to work, making things happen. And that's what we're going to do today. Again, I'm your host, Robert Weichelt. I've been in the real estate industry since 1986. Some of you are doing the math. Some of you are going, wait a second, I wasn't even born in 86, right, Richie? But it's I've had the chance to help thousands of sellers. And the reason why I tell you that is because I've seen a few things. I've seen some ups and downs and all arounds. But as a broker, trainer, mentor, my mission is very simple. I want to empower others to grow, win, and lead with purpose. If you are an agent that wants to take more listings, I encourage you to reach out to me, schedule a one-on-one. Let's take a look at your business. Let's take a look under the hood and see what's happening. So with that said, I always like to start off with the 5 habits that'll help you grow your real estate business. Number one is you need to lead generate. I don't care what business if you're in, if you're selling a service, a product, you need to lead generate. You need to let people know that you're there, whether it's proactive and going after right after the phone calls or text messages or reaching out to the sellers if you're working with listings. Obviously, you want to get your social media game in touch. You want to track and measure your numbers. That's the second most important thing. Is second, track and measure numbers, making sure that you're reaching out to the right people. Number one. Number two, that you're actually making some success and you can really track and measure that. Number three, you need to set appointments daily. A day without a seller or buyer appointment is a red flag in your business. Number four, you need to follow up like a pro. 80% of conversions happen in the follow up. You've all heard this term, fortune is in the follow up. And of course, the fifth thing to grow your real estate business starting today is sharpen your skills, role play, study scripts, really become a student of your game. And I always like to leave with this quote: do something today that your future self will thank you for. So with that said, agents out there that are listening to this, we need to make sure we're working with the lowest hanging fruit. If your expertise is working with sellers, you need to reach out to the lowest hanging fruit of those sellers, likely to moves, expireds, investors, and the like. We need to make sure that we understand working with expireds. Realtors know what I'm talking about. Working with expireds, those are sellers with their hands up. Do you know that 78% of sellers list with the first person they speak to? That's a big number. These are expired sellers that go back in inactive. And when the agent reaches out to them, 78% of them go with the first agent that talks to them. So by all means, if you just reach out to people, you're going to start getting more listings. Well, Robert, I don't know who to call, who to talk to. FSBO's expired pre-foreclosures. That's where I would recommend. And Carla will put in the chat box a 14-day free trial if you want to find the FSBO's expireds and pre-foreclosures. If you don't have a cash offer solution, you need one. And Carlo put together another 14-day free trial for that. It's phenomenal. If you can present a cash offer to a seller, you're ahead of the game. And at the end of the day, if you don't have a niche, something that is going to provide speed, efficiency, and maximum profit for the sellers, you need to learn into that. So if you want to check into our online offers platform, we're having just amazing success with, I encourage you to do that. I mentioned that I was out traveling the country in the RV, and people are thinking, wait a second, did you retire? I can't believe how many people asked me if I retired from real estate. No, I just found a better, more efficient way to sell real estate. All of my listings are done via Zoom. So if you can have efficient and effective business, you might want to check into that, at least for an initial conversation. The other question I have is, are you driving massive traffic to your properties, to your open houses? Do they look like this? This right here represents 884 people to our open houses. That's huge. That's a huge number. That's a bigger number than most agents you'll ever talk to have. But I talked about tracking and measuring. I don't care if you're tracking and measuring using a CRM like Sisu, or you're taking notes on a cocktail napkin from last night's happy hour. You need to make sure you're tracking and measuring your numbers. And first and foremost, you need to celebrate your success. We need to celebrate our wins. We need to be excited about the little things. So I encourage you to tune in every Wednesday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. That's the podcast, the More Listings podcast. And then on Fridays, we have coaching, training, mentoring. I encourage you all to join that. And Carl will put the links there as well. It is the same link to join in, morenowlistings.com. So with that said, if you guys want to survive, that's fine. But if you want to thrive in real estate, I encourage you to reach out to me and let's really get that that momentum going. So with that said, I'm going to jump right into the program. I want to thank everybody for being here today. Whether you're watching it on YouTube, listening to on our Spotify channel, we have got a great lineup. So this is my lender, Richie. Richie is somebody I've worked with for a long time, and I've known his father even longer. The reason why I say that is because my good friend, Chris Sorensen, would not refer his son if he didn't feel he was solid. Richie's done my daughter's loan. Richie's done our son's loan. He is the go-to guy that we use. So I've got two things to ask Richie. First of all, how's that beautiful family of yours?
They're doing awesome. They're what keeps me going. Keeps me when my feet hit the ground in the morning, I'm ready to run. Mainly because kids are probably running around the house and I got to chase them. So they keep me smiling.
Amen, brother. Well, let's just dive right into it. Let's first give the mortgage minute, but I think we're going to have a little bit of a twist today because we've had a government shutdown last night at 12:01. I want to dive right into it. How do you think the government shutdown is going to affect the real estate market?
It affects us now, and it's going to affect us in the future. So I'll talk about now because that's what's important. What's going on with loans right now? If we're trying to fund loans, what solutions are there? How do we navigate this? We knew this was looming. We knew it was coming. So we did a lot of preemptive work yesterday. And then at butt crack of the dawn, we're up reading bulletins from Fannie, Freddie, FHA. And here's what I got for you. USDA loans, if you haven't had a commitment on that already, that's going to be a problem. We're going to have to wait for the government to open back up to get that commitment on a USDA loan. The other problem we're seeing is FEMA's not issuing any flood policies. So what do? If you've got a home that someone's buying in a flood zone, here's your solution. And what we're doing, we're telling people, go look at private flood insurance. Yes, it may be more expensive, but guess what? After we close your loan, we can switch it. You can then shop and look at FEMA's quote and switch into a better quote or better policy. But this allows us to keep everything on track and get you into your new home on time. The other thing we're looking at is a lot of these government employees are furloughed. So a lot of lenders are going, okay, wait, you got to get back to work before we could close your loan. Not us at PRMG. If we can document that they're employed, we know they're going to go back to work. Even though they're furloughed, we will close their loan. Again, just trying to be leading the industry. We're going to go ahead and do that. Now let's look ahead. These government shutdowns do affect the economy. And I'm going to show you it's a double-edged sword. So typically, like the last shutdown, I had a note here. I'll pull it up back in, when was it? The last government shutdown was in 2013. That lasted 16 days. That lowered the GDP over time by 0.6%. Now, not good, right? But in our mortgage world, that slower economy news does help improve mortgage rates. The double-edged sword is, yes, this may take some time to show up, like we're going to get delayed job numbers. We're also heading into that season where there's a lot of seasonal employment. So we might also see an uptick in job numbers for people just grabbing those seasonal jobs, which negatively affects it. So we're talking about what's going to happen through the end of the year. The Fed has released their dot plot, and most of those Fed members are voting for 2 more rate cuts through the end of the year. Now, we had a rate cut on September 17th, so why have rates gone up since then? Well, the Fed's come out and said, look, inflation's still sticky. We're heavily reliant on these job numbers. Us in the industry have seen this before. When we hit these holiday months, it kind of ticks up. So it's very reliant on this future data. That's why it's important to join these calls or have a mortgage lender partner that's reading this daily, because I'm going to know probably 2-3 days, a week ahead of time, what's going to come. So if you've got somebody that's on the fence shopping, we are at a historically 3-year low in rates. If they are on the fence, it's time to shove them. Because heaven forbid we hit these seasonal months and these rates tick up, they're going to need to wait till spring And we all know what happens in spring. That really starts to pick up the activity. Now's the time to get them in that home if they are on the fence. Hopefully that touches what you're asking, Robert.
Yeah, you know what it is, because a lot of people actually, I got a lot of calls already this morning finding, just wanting to know what's going to go on with that. How's that affect my business? Most people just don't have enough understanding of how all that works. So I'm glad you touched on that. That's awesome. And Richie, if you can stick around, I definitely want to dive in more. I've got some really powerful things I'd like to handle in the Q&A with you, but I want to get my special guest in because I know that they both have hard stops. So Richie, stick around. Let's go into that. I really appreciate your knowledge too, by the way, because the smarter I am, the better I am with my clients, and the smarter I am is because of you. Thank you, sir.
We want to be a partner with you, and how we do that is educate your clients into being a homeowner. Nobody wants to buy something they don't know anything about. People will spend money where and when they feel good. And when we take that time to answer their questions, help them be forward looking, what's going to come next, it brings their stress levels down. And I'd love to partner with anybody that's listening to this to give their future home buyers that ease.
You're awesome, brother. Appreciate you. Real quick, we're going to get to our special guest here in just a moment. And I really appreciate, you're going to really enjoy our special guest. But before we get there, I want to talk to Tim Yates just real quick and how we're helping our homeowners with estate planning, with living trusts, and some really killer numbers in terms of, what we're seeing in terms of that. How it's amazing, Tim, how many of my sellers, how many of my homeowner clients don't have a living trust, have no idea. It's no big deal. So why don't we do this? Why don't we dive right into it, Tim? How can estate planning open the door for more listing opportunities?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. The numbers tell a story and the numbers don't lie. 87.3% of all homeowners in the state of California do not have a living trust. That really means 9 out of 10 of all your contacts don't have this. Two reasons behind that. One, lack of understanding and lack of education. And two, cost. Traditionally, estate planning is extremely expensive. And so, as you know, Robert, about a decade ago, I formed an estate planning firm. Actually, we're more of a technology firm with my wife, Carrie, who's our firm's lead attorney. And we wanted to disrupt that industry by working closely with real estate professionals and helping real estate professionals win more listings, close more deals, because it was a natural progression. You sell a home to somebody, they need to have the home protected now. You get a home, put it into an estate plan, make sure it's protected in a trust, things like that. So for us, what I'm excited about is, working with you. We're developing this amazing program that we're launching. I like to call it the legacy listing system. And as you know, it's a 3-step solution for agents to win more listings, stand out in their market. It's 100% free. As you know, we're not selling anything here. And if it's something that anybody that's listening wants to learn more, check it out. They can, use the QR code there, fill out a basic questionnaire, which allows me to get an idea of who I'm talking to see if this might be a good fit for them. And I can't wait to tell more people about it. It's a difference maker for every agent and loan officer that we've worked with thus far.
I love it. And Tim, the biggest thing that I look at it as, that I've been using it as, is reaching out to my database, buyers, sellers, investors, and other agents with more than just a, hey, do you want to buy or sell? It's, what's your estate plan look like? What is your living trust? Is your property and living trust? It's another way to reach out to your consumer, to your clients, to your circle of influence. It's another way to stay sticky and add value. Tim, thank you for jumping on. I know Carla will leave your information on the chat, also your QR code. A lot of people are getting signed up for this. It's just a little education, and then you can start having that conversation with folks. So I recommend Tim very much. And Tim, stick around as long as you can. I know you have a hard stop, but stick around as long as you can, and we'll go ahead and maybe do some Q&A at the end if you're still around. So I appreciate you both. So this is where it gets fun. Shanna Banana, I got to tell you, I was going to not say Shanna Banana, but I just couldn't resist.
Me.
Shanna and I have been involved at the Board of Realtors for some time. And I tell you, it's one of the most knowledgeable folks in the industry that I've met, and I truly mean that, because you people run across people at networking events and different committee work, and when we go to the Capitol and Ledge Day and all these things, there are certain conversations you have with people that you go, yeah, this person's sharp, they get it, lots of common sense. So I'm grateful to have you on the More Listings Mastermind, Shanna. So how are you today?
I am doing really well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very happy to be here. And I told you I had a hard stop, but actually we've been able to move that hearing that I was supposed to be at. So you can
Unlawful
keep me for
detainer, right?
Q&A if that's helpful. Yeah, we had correct.
Yeah, we deal a lot with that in the REO space, and we'll certainly get you back on to talk a little bit more in detail about that. But before we get started, who's Shanna? Tell the audience who.
I am a lot of things. I own my law office, SoCal Realty Law. I've been in business as SoCal Realty Law since 2011. I got two kids. I'm also the president of a nonprofit called Amicus. We've built six emergency sleeping cabins in the city of El Cajon, and I adopted two dogs about 6 months ago, and they're awesome. I'm loving being a dog mom too.
Dog mom too. I love it. Well, let's dive into it. Tell us a little bit about some of the areas of expertise. I know we talked about real estate law, landlord services, and litigation, but tell us a little bit about your areas of expertise.
I've been a real estate attorney in San Diego since 2005. I worked with Michael Spilger a long time ago. I think I was on your brother's radio show back in like 2008 or something like that. So,
Love Mike Spillman. Yeah.
I started practicing at the height of the market, and then I helped a lot of people through the foreclosure crisis. And that's kind of where I started. And then I started practicing landlord tenant law and really enjoyed that. So that's become a big part of my practice. But we also do litigation. We do a lot of plaintiffs' cases, meaning we're the party that sues, that files the lawsuit. Those are fraud cases, quiet title actions, boundary line disputes, and then we do some transactional stuff as well.
I love it. I love it. I know that anybody that has any kind of real estate questions, they always seem to come, and it's always agents always want to try to answer those legal type questions, borderline. I don't know. I just say, here's Shanna's number. Go talk to her about it, because it's so easy for us agents to get involved in that. Well, I could probably answer this. This is what I would do, kind of stuff. So yeah, it's that's great. So my question, I've got a rapid fire question for you. A couple of powerful questions. First one I'd like to ask is, what are the most common legal pitfalls that landlords face today?
Today is unique because we have a lot of new laws. Since about 2020, the law has consistently changed. And now not only do we have new state laws constantly changing, but we have new local laws. So about 90% of the new clients that come in my door who need help removing an unwanted tenant from their property, once we review their leases, we find that they're not in compliance. So compliance is a big issue right now because so many local jurisdictions, like the city of San Diego, have special addenda that need to be included in your lease. The state of California has the rent cap just cause addendum that you have to tell the tenant whether the property is exempt or not exempt from tenant protection laws. And so I love the CAR forms, California Association of Realtors forms. They come with the rent cap just cause addendum that automatically is populated when you're drafting one if you're a realtor and you have that subscription. But what it doesn't have is like the City of San Diego addendum, City of Chula Vista addendum, Imperial Beach addendum, and go up and down California, you'll find local jurisdictions where you need to address the local laws. So we are keeping track of that. And the first thing that we have to do oftentimes is bring the lease into compliance. So that's a major one. And I think that what often happens is even though a real estate professional has done a great job of filling out the lease form, they don't realize that there's something else needed.
I love it. And that's a mouthful. So what I would recommend is just call Shanna if you have any questions like that. So because a lot of us deal with landlords, and that's a perfect example of what we try to do. I've owned many, many, many doors, and I've had many, many tenants, and it's chaos. And it's easy for us agents to want to ask those questions. I recommend get with Shannon. So that's great. Next question I have, and again, rapid fire. How can agents protect themselves from litigation when working with rental properties?
So that makes me think of brokers and agents who practice in the area of property management. In my practice, we represent a lot of property management companies. They've got a lot of doors. They're always trying to update their leases to protect the brokerage from claims. And then they also uh, hire us to help when we need to remove a tenant or when we need to issue notices. So putting everything in writing is really important. I
Yeah.
guess number one, make sure the lease is in compliance. Have your general counsel or a real estate attorney make sure that the leases you're doing are good. And then make sure to put all those communications with tenants in writing, as well as communications with the owners of the property. Um, Text messages are fine, emails are better. But when a tenant isn't following the terms of the lease, it's important to provide a notice to the tenant, a formal notice, like a notice to cure, a notice to pay right away. If you don't, then you wait and you can waive those claims. Time passes and other things happen, and it just complicates the process. Then when we get brought into it, we usually have to backtrack and start fresh. I can give you a lot of
Oh
a
yeah,
lot of stories.
we can certainly dive down that hole. You know what's funny? You said a couple things. It's got to be in writing. Guys, we learned that in Real Estate 101 before we started taking our test. If it's not in writing, it didn't happen. I mean, that's kind of, we need to remember if it needs to be in writing. And the other thing is during the foreclosure market, the default market, a lot of agents I was hearing were telling tenants to stop paying their rent to the landlord. I don't know if I would want to be giving that kind of advice. So it's something you want to compassionately tell the tenant that's getting evicted from their home, an unlawful detainer or whatever. Even so, we don't want to be giving that kind of advice. So I find that most agents, they think they're doing the right thing by saying, oh yeah, the home's been foreclosed on, stop paying your rent. I could tell you the seller's going to come after you. So that's a big deal. Here's something that's always on my mind as a broker. Now I'm a broker associate now. Thank you, Lord. I was my own broker of record for many years, and I've joined EXP many years ago. And so I'm a broker associate. So I have a broker of record. So I sleep better at night because you never know what your agents might do. And this is one thing I always want to tell agents. Here's the question. What's the one law every real estate professional should know immediately?
Interesting. What's the one law that every real estate professional should know immediately?
Yeah,
You
like
mean with
what's one
regard to leasing
let's
and
let's talk about leasing or even transactional, things that agents need to know. It's like this is the biggest thing I see agents getting in trouble for, things that they should not do, pitfalls, showing them where the pitfalls are so they don't make the mistakes.
yeah. Um, so the failure to bring in counsel, the failure to refer your client to a real estate attorney or for you as an agent or a broker to get legal advice, when you start questioning what you're doing. So if you're doing a lot of CYA and you're worried that you might be doing something wrong, well, then that's a good opportunity to call your local real estate attorney, whether it's me or anybody else. It's worth checking in. Now, as a realtor, you have access to car legal. And I think that car legal usually does a pretty good job of answering general questions and sometimes real specific stuff. And sometimes I find that they've given advice that I don't agree with, which is fine. Attorneys always disagree. That's job security for us. Um, but it's as far as what you need to know, you shouldn't be you shouldn't be interpreting the law. You should be asking for a legal professional to interpret the law. And I'll tell you, the car forms are very complicated, and I've read them 1,000 times, and I still have to read them every time a question comes up because they're always changing. So understanding contract law is great. But when you understand contract law, you know that you need to understand your contract. And so as a realtor, you have these forms and that those are your tools. So really knowing your contracts is very important.
You know what? It's funny because most agents, I do a lot of mentoring, a lot of new agents, literally agents that the only thing they know about real estate is what they learned to study to take their test. And when they first come in through the EXP mentorship program, they literally have no clue. Most of them, a good number of them are renters, so they don't have any experience even buying their own home. And it's you just don't know what you don't know. So what you said is key: knowing your contracts, the listing agreement, the RLA. In my opinion, is the most important, right alongside the RPA, the purchase agreement. Those are the two foundational contracts that you need to know inside and out, because a buyer or seller, they're going to ask you, hey, what is this? You need to know, not like, I don't know, let me check. Know your contracts, really get to know that. That's key. That's a super important thing. So I appreciate that. We've had a lot of stuff going on in terms of tenant rights. A lot of people say that it's more heavy towards tenant rights versus owner rights. What are some of the recent changes in landlord tenant when it comes to like agents having a listing? What are some of the landlord tenant laws that are affecting listings today?
And I don't take listings. I have a broker's license, but I don't do any sales. So, but I understand the process because I get involved when there's a dispute with a listing broker or, when something happens. When you have a tenant in a property, just understand that anything you're going to speak to that tenant about, anything that you tell that tenant, the tenant is going to expect you to follow through on. So if you set an expectation that, for instance, if you tell them stop paying their rent, they're going to believe you. If you tell them that the landlord's going to fix that, they're going to believe you. And then you get into a problem when the thing doesn't get fixed and the tenant wants it to be. And the other problem, which is more general and not directly related to listings, but is important, is recent changes in the law in just the last year and a half have now brought attorney's fees provisions and punitive damages into tenant protection laws that weren't previously there. So when the rent cap and just cause law was originally passed, it didn't have an attorney's fees clause in it. So a tenant could raise their rights, but if the landlord had violated the law, the tenant would not get an award of their attorney's fees for being right. Maybe through the lease, but it wasn't written into the law. And the City of San Diego law also has that included. So it's particularly problematic now and harmful to the owner if the property manager or the listing agent breaches tenant protection laws, because then the owner may need to pay their attorney's fees. It also means that there are a lot more attorneys out there who are representing tenants. So we're seeing a lot more litigation around landlord-tenant disputes.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of tenants had already representation, knowing that they've got they received this home is in a notice of default. This home is in now a trust deed sale. This home has gone to auction. This home is no longer the previous owners. And I find more and more tenants are seeking representation to know know your options. Fannie Mae came out with that about relocation assistance and, next steps. And you certainly don't want to harass a tenant, but they have rights like anyone else. So that's a slippery slope. And we need to make sure that we're following the guidelines. And this leads to my last question for you. When is it essential to involve an attorney in a real estate transaction?
So when you get into a dispute where, for instance, a seller decides that they don't want to sell anymore, or a buyer isn't sure about the condition of the property, I understand that brokers don't really want to have an attorney messing around in the transaction. You want it to close. You want to make sure that all the disclosures happen and everything goes by the book. But when that client starts asking legal questions like, what do I do about the tenant? Once I close, there's a tenant there. What's my next step? That's when you want to make sure that they talk to an attorney prior to the close of escrow and make sure they understand what they're getting into, especially with the expense involved. Evicting a tenant can be very expensive, especially those cases go to trial. And that I think is a huge liability for brokers. And if you're in a transaction where the lease is not in compliance, you want to make sure that the new landlord, the buyer, knows what lease is in compliance.
That's great. A lot of good stuff. I know we hammered out a lot of good questions. So I guess the last thing I wanted to bring up is, what would you like to say to the agent, whether it's a brand new agent, mid-level, or just a superstar producer? Bottom line, what do you want to say to the real estate professional that's tuning into today's podcast? What would you like to say to those agents?
I think that they should not be discouraged by all of the complexity of what I'm talking about, because I think that just mastering those contracts is where they should focus. And then leave the landlord tenant stuff up to the attorneys. Don't try to wing it. Don't try to shoot from the hip and guess, or even ask ChatGPT. That's not a good idea, because I ask ChatGPT all the time and it's wrong like half of the time. I do webinars and I prepare my webinars and I'm always on ChatGPT, like, give me something good to talk about, right? And it suggests laws that like aren't California law, or they're from England, just all sorts of crazy stuff comes up. So you've got to check that out before you start giving any kind of advice. And new agents should never give any kind of legal advice. That's the key.
Oh, I think that not only new agents, I don't think the experienced agents should either, because I tell you what, it's always good form to forward somebody like your information along to the seller or the buyer, whoever your client is, and know that you're in good hands. Obviously, she knows what she's talking about, guys. So I really appreciate you jumping on. I tell you, it's been we've known each other for a long time. Our paths have crossed so many times with the board of realtors and the work we do there with whether it be, like I mentioned, Ledge Day up at the state. That's always been my favorite thing, by the way.
Mine too. I miss it. I haven't gone in many years, but I used to love those.
Yeah, we'd go up there. We'd hang out with the state senator, state assembly. We meet with other agents from across the state, and it's so much fun. So I look forward to getting back involved in that again, and we'll hopefully run into each other. But I certainly recommend anyone that has any legal questions to you. So I thank you for being a resource for us. So thank you so much.
Absolutely happy to be here. Let me know if you ever want me to come back.
You know what? I certainly appreciate it. Let's get going with the next phase of what we're going to talk about. Guys, listen, if you're watching this live in studio, or you're watching it on YouTube later on, or you're listening to it on Spotify, hey, listen, don't just survive in real estate. There's a lot of great tools out there. Make sure you're tapping into them. Thrive in the real estate business. There's my QR code. Schedule a one-on-one appointment. I'd love to meet with you. So thank you so much, all of my guests. What I want to do real quick is I want to bring up Joseph Limo, Joseph Limo is going to be our guest next week. We're going to talk about kind of the how-to mastermind. We're going to really break it up into 3 bite-sized pieces. Piece number 1 is the brand new agent. What do we want to say to the brand new agent? We want to help them not get discouraged and be that 87% of agents quit in the first year. We want to make sure that when they come and work with us, they're going to thrive in the real estate business. So Joseph Limo, let's touch base a little bit on some of the things we're going to talk about for the new agents. I know you have the level up stuff. You've got a lot of great stuff going on. What are we saying to the new agents that we're going to discuss next week?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing that brand new agents need to realize is really 2 things. Number 1, you can't learn everything at once. I think they get so caught up in trying to either be perfect before they get started, or just try and fly by the seat of their pants, never to return back to, I need to figure out how to actually do this on a proficient level, and neither are ideal. So that's first and foremost. Shiny object syndrome is a real thing in our industry. I think we all know and see that. And I think that the brand new agent gets caught up in that. And that's why we see not only like this really long incubation period from license to first closing, but it's also the same reason why we see the 80 percentile of new agents leaving the industry in the first 3 years. And that's because it's very easy to get caught up in doing everything for 10 minutes and then quitting and being on to the next thing and spending your way out of this industry. And then I think the second thing is that there are ways to just hyper focus on the right activities. It's, for example, how I built the 0 to 6 figure program. It was making sure that brand new agents knew exactly what to do so they can have confidence in what they're doing every day. We know that brand new agents, just like a lot of seasoned agents, when markets change, we get really, really insecure about what we're doing at any given moment. Is this a worthy activity? Is this going to lead to business? So I think when new agents have the confidence in the plan that they have before them, then they can just put their focus in where it needs to be and know that they're going to have success at the end of it.
Amen, brother. Well, I look forward to that. The How to Mastermind is actually every Monday, I believe, at 11 o'clock Pacific.
Exactly
And
right.
we'll certainly share that link with our listeners. Joseph Limo, you are an amazing human being. I appreciate you. I appreciate all you do for everybody in the organization. And I want to give a quick shout out to Lawrence King, to another coach who's on the call right now, Circle of Influence. And he's got a great mastermind. I'll forward all the masterminds and all the coaching and training and mentorship. One thing we can do is we can get overloaded with all these different trainings and coaching. My goal is to vet out the trainings, get right to the ones that, in my opinion, are going to help you take more listings. That's what I personally like to coach, train, and mentor, is helping agents take more listings. Take more listings, you get more listing opportunities from sellers coming at your property. You take more listings, you're going to work with more buyers. Take more listings, you're going to get investors blowing up your phone. I got 3 just this morning, just from one of our new listings. The investors will come. I just got done finishing my RV trip around the country, as I was mentioning. We stopped in Iowa. Who can tell me what's in Iowa that's baseball related? The Field of Dreams. We went there, Carla and I and the dog. It was awesome. My point is, if you build it, they will come. Take the listing, then more sellers will come. Take the listings, more buyers, more investors, and more agents. So that's my 2 cents on the More Listings Mastermind. I want to open it up, if we could. I see a lot of our folks are still on. Let's open it up for Q&A. I'd like to maybe 1 or 2 questions that let me check the chat box and see what kind of questions we have. Any questions that we'd like for our panel? Joseph Limo, go ahead.
It's Shauna, correct? Thank you for being here today, and thank you for sharing what you do and how you support agents. You were really forward on the need for real estate agents to better understand their contracts. I'd love to hear from you 2 things, if you could. One, what you think an agent could or should do to get better prepared with their contracts, and how an agent understands the line between their fiduciary and their ability to navigate contracts, and where that ends and it becomes more of an attorney's ball game instead of theirs.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm as far as becoming better prepared, I think that experience is important because the contract really is so complicated that, just reading it isn't going to tell you what to do. So when you find yourself in a situation, refer to the contract, like find that area in the contract and look at it. If you ever have a question about what would happen if something happened in my transaction, go to the contract, see what it says, continue to review it and re-review it. I mean, I still am constantly reviewing the car forms and every other form that comes my way. So preparing is difficult because I wouldn't just say sit around and read through the contract, but like process it, Like an idea comes to mind, a scenario, a hypothetical, and see what the contract says about it. And the line between a fiduciary duty and I'm not sure if I understand your question, so you could give me a little bit more, but between being a good fiduciary, acting in the best interest of your client, and drafting the contract.
I guess the way that I try to explain it to like agents when I do like a contract training is like, as a real estate practitioner, we deal with agreements. our goal and our function is to find agreements between buyer and seller, and we essentially create contracts that identify the agreements made between the two. When a party starts to have disagreement, that's typically when it becomes more of maybe a real estate attorney, or when there's more of I guess like any discussion of litigation, obviously. So I'm trying to find like what would you say is maybe a more eloquent and a more accurate way to describe where our function ends and yours begins.
Hmm. So a real estate broker or agent can negotiate the terms of the contract. And first thing that comes to mind is I do not recommend doing dual agency. When somebody comes to me and they have a problem in a transaction and they say the agent was a dual agent, I think, oh, great, because that's going to help me settle that case. I would stay away from dual agency. I know it's very common. It's you know, something that creates problems because of the concept of a conflict of interest, which real estate agents and brokers don't really have in the profession. Attorneys do. We have conflicts of interest, so we can't represent people who are on opposite sides of a transaction unless they agree to waive some of that. Um, but when you're just representing one side and you're negotiating the contract, you know, all you can really do is list the terms and pass them back and forth, adjust the terms. And this is not legal work. This is just negotiating the terms, right? Like, here's what my client wants, here's what the other side wants, compare the two and just see if you can form a meeting of the minds. And I think that's well within the real estate professional's ability and not necessarily practicing law, as long as you're not advising them of maybe the impact of those terms. Once you're starting to question, I wonder if this is really in their best interest. If you don't know, then you'd want to send them to an attorney to see, hey, is this really a contract they want to sign?
And Shanna, to that point, that's where most of the agents that have done a few transactions fail, is because they think, oh, this is what we did last time. Let me tell you what the ramifications could be. Boom, boom, boom. You can maybe share some stories, but when you start getting into that giving legal advice, it's just like giving tax advice. You're not a CPA either, unless you are. So they tell us that day one. Don't give legal advice. Don't give tax advice. So, Joseph, great question. Anyone else got a question for our panel?
Yeah, I got a question for Richie. Richie, kind of what you're dealing with right now with the interest rates changing every day, right? And it's so much competition out there. Like you're dealing with the big box, Chase, Bank of America, all those companies. Home builders also offering low rates. How are you competing with those type of big box office spots and builders rates and all that stuff? How are you doing that, dealing with that with your clients?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of points to touch on there. The first one I'll touch on is these new builds.
Yeah,
They have a preferred in-house lender. They're going to offer that buyer a credit. And I'll admit when I lose, it's like, no, that is a better deal. If they're going to offer you 40 grand worth of credits to cover closing costs and buy down your rate, well, I can't compete with that unless I am the builder's preferred lender. So I'll be very upfront and honest about that. But where we stand out far and above from the Rockets or credit unions or a Chase or a Wells, we get people from them all the time. And it's funny, Lawrence, even their easy W-2 conventional 20% down buyers,
right.
because people want it to be easy. And when it's Saturday night, 7 o'clock at night, and you've got a question and they don't get back to you till Tuesday or Wednesday of next week, that frustrates a buyer. Like I said before, people will spend money where and when they feel good. And that's how we make even you as the agent stand out, is we make them feel good about the team. That's where people have, even though maybe I'm slightly higher in a rate, and I may be an 8 to a quarter higher than some of the best rates out there, but they'll come and choose me because they go, wow, we just spent an hour on the phone and you answered all my questions. Somebody else just sent me a link and told me to upload documents. And then they told me I'm pre-approved. I don't even know what my payment is. I don't even know what my cash to close is. That's missing with the Rockets, the credit unions. It's like number in, number out. where we say, okay, let's slow down. Let's build a personalized strategy and make sure you really understand every single line item of a loan estimate. What's your payment? What's the rate? Where are rates heading? What are your 5-10-year goals? What is the plan? Nobody asks them that. So that's where we slow it down, make sure they have a full understanding.
Okay.
Awesome. Great. That's a great question, because there's a lot of that comes up a lot. Most buyers, they'll just go into a new home development. Next thing you know, they're getting the lender of choice shoved down your throat. So that was a great question. Any other questions for our panel before we let them get back to their daily job, get back to work? Any other questions? I also want to let you know
Yeah, I
that.
got one.
Oh yes, please, Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was calling some notice of defaults yesterday, prospecting, and came across this house. I did some skip tracing. The owner is deceased. So what do you guys suggest as my next step?
If you're asking me, I can tell you that your goal is to reach out to whoever owns that property. If it's both owners are deceased, then you're having a problem. You need to find out if there's a trust, a living trust. There's a lot to unpack with that question. And I sent you those scripts yesterday. We'll certainly go over that as well. But remember, when you're talking to people in the notice of default, notice of trust deed situation, number one, those numbers are climbing. Number two, those sellers or those homeowners are in massive distress because they're getting hammered by their lender. They're getting hammered by other agents, investors, and they want to keep their home. The very, very large percentage of those folks want to keep their home. So your message needs to be congruent with that. I understand you're in this situation. It's my job as a real estate expert to reach out to people in your situation. Do you want to keep your home? Great. Let's find solutions for you to keep your home, number one. You exhaust those options, then you're there to help them with the next step, whether it's protect their equity, protect them from foreclosure, or the like. But make sure you're coming back with compassion and not just trying to prey on these people. They need our help. And as professionals, that's our job. We can certainly expand on that on our trainings. Also, wanted to let everybody know that Shanna put her information in the chat box. I encourage you to reach out to her. That exact email signature is what I send to clients that ask me, who do you know in the real estate attorney space? And that's what I send them. So I apologize in advance if I send you people that don't quite meet your specific area of expertise, but I know most of them are looking for what you're doing. So Shanna, thank you so much. Richie, thank you so much for dropping in information. You have to add something else, Richie, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to add, because we're always doing something, right? And I forget, we're going a million miles an hour. There's all this news, and I forget to slow down sometimes. And I want to address something else with Lawrence. For our veterans, what myself and PRMG are doing, and I'll unveil the curtains to the 8 that are here, we're going to work. We're not going to work for free. We got to cover costs. But for our veterans, we're going to just cover costs. And what we do is we're going to give them a 2% credit up to $21,000. But now we're talking about $1 million sales price. So 2% credit to our VA buyers. Now, Lawrence, there's no other lender doing this, okay? There's some other programs out there that will give them a couple grand, or they'll do it after closing. No, this 2% they can use to cover closing costs. They can buy down their rate, or even better, they can use it to pay off debt. And what we do is, if you want to sign up, no, I offer that. But then again, we're always trying to do, what can we do to make you guys look like the hero? If you want, send me an email. I'll get you signed up. We create you a landing page. And now you, in your market, get to become the VA expert. We tell these veterans, get the credit you deserve. And now you're the VA buyer expert. And our hope is, if we do this for free, we get the FHA, the conventionals, it expands from there. So I just wanted to offer that to everyone on this call.
That's great, Richie. And one thing I want to add to that is, like with Shanna, don't try to be a lender. Send them to Richie and let Richie handle the lending questions. So I took Richie and lending and made it Rendy. So my point is, like you wouldn't answer any legal questions, I don't think it's our job as buyer agents or seller agents to go so detailed into the lending space. Refer it out to your power partners. So thank you, Richie. And Richie put his information in there, as well as Shanna and Tim. Lawrence, you had a quick question before we get started?
No, I was just telling Richie, thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, that's a
Thank you,
great
Shannon.
question. So with that said, guys, I want to thank my guest, Shanna, Richie, Tim. A special thank you to Joseph Lima, who's our next week's guest. We've got some great stuff in store for you next week. So make sure you tune in next week, every single Wednesday for that matter. Wednesdays, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, the More Listings Mastermind. You can go to morenowlistings.com. You guys have a great day, and we will talk to you again soon.